Are back bends safe for people with spondylolithesis, which is a condition where one vertebra slips in front of the one beneath it? For the answer, stay tuned. Spondylolithesis is a condition in which the spine isn't stable. Certain positions cause one vertebra, one level of the spine, to slip in front of the one beneath it. Okay, now since the spinal cord and then the roots of the spinal cord, the so-called cauda equina, travel in the canal in the middle of the bones, when one bone slips in front of the other, you could have a disastrous effect where a bunch of nerves lose their function. Okay, so this is a huge problem. Now, spondylolithesis generally occurs in the lower lumbar spine. So that's actually beneath the level of the spinal cord, where just the roots of the individual nerves are coming down. But still, that can cause nerve problems. The student who wrote in has been told that back bends are contraindicated for Bowden for people with spondylolithesis. Now, I should mention that sometimes the bones can slip the other direction. But when the bones slip forward, that's the position where doing a back bend could encourage that wayward vertebra to go even farther forward, and that's potentially a problem. The student who wrote in said that he's been told the poses are contraindicated, but he loves back bends, so he does them anyway, and usually the next day he's got pain. Okay, that right there is the indication that this student, sad to say, is not listening to what his body is trying to tell him. He's getting pain. He's potentially putting the spine in a more perilous situation. And you know, one thing about the body, if you don't pay attention to the feedback it's giving, if you don't notice a side effect in your yoga practice and continue to practice in any case, just because you love the pose or whatever, the body will often raise its voice by creating a much worse symptom. And that's precisely what we want to avoid when we're talking about potentially compressing spinal nerves. Okay, so now we do need to move backward and forward with our spine in real life. You lift your arms over your head, that causes a little bit of a back bend, particularly in the chest. Every time we inhale, in effect, it's a slight back bend because the lumbar and cervical curves ever so slightly increase during the inhalation and ever so slightly move in the direction of flattening during the exhalation. This is a very subtle movement, kind of like a cat-cow pose that's built into every one of us as we breathe, as long as we're not holding too much tension in the body, that is. Okay, so I do think that if you have skillful instruction, that some very gentle back bending, where you learn to not overbend in the lumbar spine, the lower back, where many people have a lot of flexibility, but where it's not safe for anybody to overextend there, and particularly risky for someone with spondylolithesis. Okay, but learning to make subtle back bending motions, and particularly learning to bend in the stubborn area of the thoracic spine, can potentially be therapeutic. But if you've got a condition like spondylolithesis, I don't think if you can avoid it, you should just wing it. It's really good to get a seasoned yoga teacher or a good yoga therapist to look at you and help you develop a practice that's good for you. Perhaps that practice will include some very gentle back bends done in a skillful way. Maybe it will have none because your situation is already too risky. So it depends on the degree the bone has already slipped, for example. Now for people where the bone slips the other way, where the bone slips backward relative to the one below it, that actually is a situation where forward bending is the problem, not back bending. So again, we can't make a generalization just based on the medical diagnosis. We need to look at a student if we're a teacher, or study ourselves with great care if we're just a yoga practitioner, and let the feedback of the body, always erring on the side of safety, allow you to figure out how to proceed. Okay, thank you so much. Take good care. Namaste.